What is going on, YouTube? This is The Last Musketeer, and welcome to part 5 of the free-to-play progression series on Arknights. So, I do apologize for the delay because we're a little behind schedule. The reason being I was going to stream the actual Chapter 7 boss, the first reaction and all that. I never ended up getting to it because I had a lot of things going on in my personal life, and to avoid not doing it halfway to give you the full experience, I decided to hold off on that. So I'm actually still not worked on the boss. I'm going to do that at some point, probably on a stream. Hopefully I can get a target date set and figure out exactly what I wanted to do. But getting into this video, guys, I ended up borrowing somebody's passenger for this first stage of Docile Holiday's S stages because I really needed a caster. My main problem I'm having right now is I'm missing a lot of options when it comes to casting. Now, I did at first try a Golden Glow, but because of the way she would attack things, she never ended up taking out the boats in time, and they would overload my top side because there's not a lot of space to place not just defenders, but also guards or some other damage type that I really need placed there. Now, I did run into a lot of problems with not having tickets, and before then had to do a lot of farming to get these actual tickets that I needed for these S stages, because there was a lot of really actually hard setups that you have to do with the greatly boosted stats that they have to deal with. It's just a bit much. Now, I do also have to do the challenge modes of these, and that's going to wait a little bit because it was hard enough for me to do these ones with the lineup that I had currently, but since it is now in the side event part, I can actually go and farm it at any time. So maybe I'll get to it in the next video, maybe it'll wait a little bit longer. Either way, we're going to get to it at some point. I do need the OP as much as possible, but we're moving on to DHS 2, and here I end up borrowing Surtur, and the reason being, I knew she was going to have enough damage for whatever came out of the top stairs going down to the blue gate later on, so just having that option available to take out all the rest of the heavy hitting guys that need also the 3-block made my life so much easier. Because these guys are annoying as long as they're in the boats. They're not too bad, they do a lot of damage, but if I have a blocker it's not so bad. But when they start stunning, that's when it becomes a bit of a problem, because the high tide comes up. It makes it to where I can't deploy anything unless I have certain tickets. So the main thing you're noticing here is that Lapland is getting a bit overrun. I did not put that together all that well, I will say for sure, and Perfumer is going to take a lot of damage here from these explosive boats, but you know, at the end of it we still end up getting it done, so it's fine. Shining goes in there, and with also having Saria healing herself and others around her, made it a little bit easier to deal with in that aspect. Now Lapland also has to worry about going down here, but that's fine. Gavial for the most part tanks it, and now I'm just hoping that somehow, some way I take them out in time. Luckily, the boat actually goes down the same time as my Thorn goes down. Not a good idea, obviously. This is the most scuffed strat you will probably ever see, but we do manage to pull it out in the end, and so that's all that matters. Getting the dub, no matter how clean it is, if you get the win, it's all worth it in the end. Just don't copy my strats, please, whatever you do. Now, moving on to DHS 3, this one was not too bad, and I'm not going to show 4 or the Annihilation because I didn't quite finish either one of those all the way. I leaked one on DHS 4, so I was not satisfied with the outcome there, and then the Annihilation, I got to like 365, I think, on first attempt. I didn't attempt it again because I was busy doing a lot of other things at the time, and I figured I'd do it when the rerun comes out, when I have plenty of time to actually think out a strategy and kind of plan for that, because I don't think that one is actually that hard. It's all about your placement, though. I made a bit of a bad decision early on doing some of the placements, and it put me behind, made me end up leaking some just because I was in a really bad position. But I end up borrowing Summer's Aya here so I can take out this middle lane. That's the only one I have to really worry about, because with the defender up top and Lapland there as well, I have no problem taking out the snipers. And I also put some of these boats down just so I can get rid of the swimmers a lot easier, because while they're not being blocked, they can still attack, and they become a bit of a nuisance because as tanky as Beagle is, she is not a self-healer, so going down was basically inevitable at that point. But I can at least get some shots in with Lapland if the snipers come through later on. Now, the annoying thing is the boats actually do stop on those tiles, which can be a bit of a pain. I also lose my bagpipe to the explosions, but by that time, Beagle is back up, so we're good to go on that. And middle lane is just fine, because between Thorns, Aya, and Gavial's skill 2, like, we're having no problem whatsoever clearing them out. Now you may be wondering, why am I in OF2? Well, there's a very important reason. This costs 0 actual sanity to farm, and as you can see, I have Swire and 4 other guards in there, so if anybody has upgraded the module of Swire, you'll know that that's what I'm doing. I'm actually farming my first module, and of course it's for Swire, because Swire is best. Obviously, if you watch my channel at all, you'll know Swire is my favorite. So it was about time that I got her as strong as I could possibly get her, other than the levels, because that is a big LMD sink and experience sink. So that's going to wait a little bit before she's actually fully maxed. Also need to work on some of the masteries, but having this module is going to be really nice because I use her basically every lineup that I possibly can, and I just love using her. You know, she has her uses basically anywhere, no matter what. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, waifu over meta. It is kicking in. So always feel free to show some love to Swire in the comments. No hate, because I will find you. But with that being done, I'm going to go ahead and show where I'm at on the module so far. So that was the first clear. I go ahead and do the other 4 directly after that, and go ahead and get that done. So now all I have to do is clear main theme S2-3 with a 3-star rating. Use a squad of at most 2 units. So what I ended up doing was using Swire, of course, who has to be there, and Mudrock, because at first I tried Saria and I was like, no, it's not quite enough damage. I need somebody else there. I could have used somebody like Thorns potentially, but I wanted to use Mudrock and have Swire sitting behind so that I can get a guaranteed run on that, because early on she does enough damage with where I have her leveled to actually take out enough by the time the Mudrock gets there. It is very close for sure. One of them almost gets by, but we do get it done, and I don't think it was necessary for me to place the other roadblocks because they will take the shortest route, and the shortest route being where Mudrock and Swire are both at. Really didn't need the roadblocks, but either way, you know, it's there for safety reasons, so I don't have to stare at the screen the whole time because I know they can take this out. So with that one being done, now all I have to do is raise her trust. Yeah, unfortunately, I did only have a limited amount of trust. I did not have her to 100. So it feels bad, definitely feels bad, but I am just about there currently. I think she's at like 98%. I was hoping to show it off for the video, but we're gonna have to wait probably another day before I get to that point. Now, one of the main things that I talked about was I'm missing casters. So now, for the sake of the story and for the sake of Amaya and my casters themselves, I've got to take her to E2 as soon as possible. Now it's going to take a lot of farming because she's eating a ton of rocks there, and I am just 0 out of 10 on those. And I don't have a lot of other ones to work up at this time, so I'm going to have to hit the quarry pretty hard until I get to that point. But we also hit the milestone of level 55. I go to the shop, claim my free rewards. They're looking pretty juicy, I'm not going to lie. At 55, they start looking pretty juicy. Getting a headhunting roll and some other just niche supplies that will come in handy over time is always a good thing to have. But I'm always looking forward to headhunting permits, for sure. Alright, so we're finally going into some of the Chapter 7 stages that I hadn't got to in the previous video. Now, there's not going to be a lot, I think maybe 2, maybe 3, potentially, before I actually get to the boss stage, which is where I will stop on this. But I will say that these really weren't that bad. I think that Chapter 7 itself seems daunting, but it's really not that hard of a task to tackle. There's a lot of good options, especially in my squad at this point. I have a lot of good options for dealing with these things. The main thing is having enough caster damage to break through the defense of those guys, and also put Gavial right underneath Thorns, because having her be able to pull both lanes, dealing damage to both of them, is absolutely fantastic. She's a great way, even without being a Lord or a ranged guard, is she can actually go in and just deal damage to everyone, as long as she has that skill 2 up. So she can be put in the weirdest spots, just to do a little bit of extra damage. That way I could get Thorns going constantly in that lane, and then she will help in the bottom lane. Now, we got this one done fairly simply. I used a couple of mines here and there. Did not do the best job of placing them. Obviously, I'm not too great with them yet. I haven't used them enough to know the actual timing and getting everything ready. But here is 7-17. Now, this one was a bit scary at first. So I did a practice run on this beforehand, and I actually completed it on the first try. So realistically, most of these maps just look like they're going to be hard and aren't near as bad as they actually seem. Now the good thing is that Perfumer herself, even without being E2, is pretty capable when it comes to healing up my squad and making sure that they can survive through most of the stuff. Gavial being there, also with the skill 2 to take out these big Sarkaz art stealers. They can be a bit of a pain, so having her taking care of them quickly while they're not able to attack from the pool is a fantastic option. Now, while that is not up, she's going to have a little bit of a hard time doing it because she's, of course, not E2 either. That is one that I really need to work up because she was one of my favorite characters, and I've just been neglecting her for so long because there's been so many options out there that actually, as far as utility-wise, boost my squad tremendously, like Bagpipe. That's why she had to go up so early. And then I also need a boss killer, which I will work on later in this video, actually. I'm very excited to showcase that one a little bit, because I've been talking about it for a while, and it was due time that I actually got one. But everything's wrapping up in this stage. Thorns is going to take it out before he even gets there, because Thorns is that guy. But as you can see, we are on 7-18, which is the boss stage, and I'm going to have to wait just a little bit to deal with it. So what I thought I would do, because during this time the Dorothy event was still not up, I decided, why not go in and do some of these challenge modes that I hadn't done. So we're going all the way back here to Chapter 5, to do some more challenge modes, because everything before then I had cleared, but I hadn't quite done a lot in this one because I'd stopped halfway through, because I realized during that time, it was before I made a lot of the upgrades that I currently have, and I figured it was due time, now that I've got a lot stronger of an account, to actually try this out. So this one actually went pretty easily. I did borrow someone's Exu because this is an increased speed stage, which can be a big problem when it comes to the aerial units. So having Exu there to be able to take them out extremely quickly is super helpful, because you can see the bottom lane, they would get past Cruz and they would almost get past Blue Poison every time, so I had to make sure that I had viable options for that. So Exu being one of the best options, I had to take her in. Alright, challenge mode of 5-5. Redeployment time of operators is doubled. Now these ones can be annoying because I do use Cantabile and I do use J for blocking the bombs normally that come out of the bottom side, but in this case I wasn't too worried about it. Once again, you know, I have all these options for dealing with the ranged units, so mainly I just reroll until I get somebody's Exu to deal with this. So she's going to be used in a lot of stages where I have to deal with the more annoying flyers. Now this challenge mode is pretty straightforward. I have Myrtle in the bot lane to guarantee that I get a lot off, and I realized because it was going back to some of these squads that I hadn't messed with in a while, I didn't actually have Bagpipe in this squad, so I was wasting a little bit of Cantabile and Myrtle's time as far as DP recovery, making it a little harder for me to get out the units that I need to in time for dealing with this lane. Because as you can see, this one nearly gets by. I dropped J there to finish him off, just so I can have that, and then another one comes through, and now I've got to deal with both of them. But I will say with Cantabile there, she took him out most of the way, and then I let Blue Poison mop up after. Thorns and Gavial can handle these lanes pretty easily, but if I do need to, I can drop Mudrock or somebody to help negate some of the damage and take some of the pressure off of them if need be. But at this point you can see it's going pretty smoothly. X2 almost goes down. I probably should have been a little smarter about the way I dropped her, or at least the order, because I know there's a lot of those casters coming through, which makes a big problem. She barely survives once again, but at this point I don't think she's necessarily all that needed, because I bait the bomb with J, and then I just have Blue Poison and Steward take out the rest. Now I do apologize for not showing in the cuts, but the only reason that I didn't was because I wanted to show, you know, that for the most part I have pretty good strategies going in beforehand, so I can just do them all back to back without losing, and it's a good feeling, I have to say. It's a little bit of a humble brag, I guess, but realistically these ones aren't that hard, so it's no big accomplishment. I just enjoy the process of trying to do it on the first try, because strategically, you know, this game is all about strategy, but being able to do something on the first try is even more rewarding to me than the overall just regular experience. Now I will say that I almost leaked one of these because I had been so long since I actually did this stage in particular that I forget my actual placements. I knew for the most part where most of the stuff that I placed before went, as far as the drone being on the middle tile right there to the right of Perfumer, and then I had Gavial bottom lane, but now I have Mudrock in the squad compared to last time, so she's going to make it a lot easier on me bottom lane instead of Gavial taking so much damage like she did in the previous completion of the non-challenge mode. Now, it is a bit scary at first because I didn't have the drone out in the middle when the first wave of purples came through, and they do a lot of damage, but luckily I was able to deal with them fast enough that I didn't have to worry about the drone not being out there. So now it's going to be out in the next waves, but I have the 3 bomb mosquitoes looking drones coming out, and I'm just going to drop J to bait the bombs, deal with that, and then the rest of them will be cleaned up pretty easily. X2's going to do a lot of work here, and obviously Thorns, when he gets the shot to actually activate his skill 2 again, he's going to finish it off pretty easy. Now I did almost get by with that one because Blue Poison didn't quite have enough levels to take it out by herself, so luckily I have Cantabile in the squad. Once again, a lifesaver. I say it every video, I love Cantabile. She is so good. And so once again, your friendly reminder per video to upgrade Cantabile if you have her, because she will change your life. Funny enough though, I realized that I hadn't done some of the extra stages in Chapter 5. There's a lot that I really have to go back and do. Now, this one in itself was very annoying when I first thought about it, but then I realized, you know, I borrowed somebody's Silver Ash for it because I knew I couldn't use either casters or snipers to take out the drones, so what better way to do it than with the 3 big boy guards, Lapland, Thorns, and Silver Ash. So now, when I have those options available for me, it becomes pretty easy. Obviously when Thorns gets his stuff going, he's going to be just fine. Mudrock can handle these lanes pretty easy. Bagpipe actually doing a good amount of damage up there, and Cantabile just holding off some waves for a little bit. I would like to take her out and then redeploy her later, but we're going to wait for a second on that. I just need to make sure that I have enough time going forward. But Bagpipe and Cantabile both go down to the drones. I now have the slow drone in the middle so that I can deal with these purple bots as they're going through. They get taken out pretty easily. I really don't have much to worry about here because I have a lot of damage between the 3. And Silver Ash, I will activate his skill here just so I can clean up the last of the waves and guarantee that I get this done without having to wait a little bit. So the faster, the better. Now, I will also apologize if my voice starts to sound a little weird. I'm doing a nigh 40-minute video commentary all at once, and as I'm deleting and going through, and if I'm not liking some of my commentary and I go back and do it, it just ends up taking a toll on my throat of all this talking for, you know, hours. So I'm doing my best. I do apologize if it starts to sound a little weird or a little scratchy. I will do my best to make it clear. But going into the challenge mode of 5-8, this one is actually not too bad. Another one that I had a good amount of options for. I borrow Golden Glow just so I can take out a lot of the units pretty quickly because they stagger through these same doors, so Golden Glow has a very good opportunity of doing a lot of damage here. Now, one thing is you have to pay a lot of attention to the crossbows. As you can see here, I placed Golden Glow next to Perfumer, so she is going to get healed, but she is taking crossbow damage right now. Luckily, she's high enough level, it doesn't really matter, so I don't have to worry about that aspect. But then I do drop Mudrock down to tank the actual bolts, and then I have a Maya placed right below to do some extra damage to guarantee that I can take them out as fast as possible, because Bagpipe is soloing the top lane, so if any of the big boys get past, I have to make sure that Bagpipe is going to take them out in time. So the little extra damage that I have going through as they're walking is going to help Bagpipe secure the bag. As you can see, pretty straightforward. We get it done fairly easily. It almost went bad on the bottom lane. Luckily, Thorns did enough damage to take them out in time so that none of them crept past, because they did get around almost the same time for a 3-stack, which would have been really, really annoying. But as you can see, I stopped there. I'm going to go back and do some of these probably in the next video. Some of the other extra stages that I have going on, because I've got to get as much OP as I actually can before the Tex Altar comes out, because that is going to be my biggest pull of the account so far. I need that operator. As you can see here, we have upgraded Tequila to E1 because this is actually going to be my boss killer. Hopefully he can do a good enough job for the most part, and I know because of the way he's set up that he does not attack while he's charging the skill, but when he does get to go with that skill, especially with the charge up, he hits so incredibly hard. It's so fun to watch, but I have a lot of things that I needed to get beforehand before actually upgrading them all the way. So I take him to skill rank 7 first and foremost, and I also need to try to specialize the skill. The problem is I'm missing a lot of the things that I need for it. I say a lot, it's really only like one book 3 and a couple of these other parts that are pretty easy to get, but I am very excited to actually start trying them out here pretty soon. So the main thing is getting him to E2 as fast as I can for the final stage, the boss stage of the Dorothy event. So we're finally starting it. As you can see here, it is a day later than I would have liked to. It's actually the day of this recording, so I'm a day behind on the event. I considered streaming it, but I decided against it. I'll probably do something with the boss stage, maybe make my own personal guide for that, because I like the idea of it. I like the idea of seeing what my roster is capable of at this point, and see if I can actually make one without having to borrow a support unit, because usually I'm lacking a lot of damage when it comes to bossing. So we're going to see what I can come up with in the end, but it may be a little bit before it comes out. It just depends on what I have time for currently. Also, I do want to hear about your thoughts on this event, because, you know, for a little bit there we were worried that Dorothy wasn't going to be real for us. So, was it worth the wait? Did you enjoy this event? I do have to say, myself, I do really like the mechanics of it. I think it's really cool, but also the event shop having 500k LMD is so good. Like, it's helping me tremendously. Because you've seen there, whenever I upgraded Tequila, I used like all the LMD I currently had saved up, which is nearly 300k, so being able to get an extra little bit to finish it off and guarantee that I E2 him and also have enough to basically E2 someone else is such a good feeling. I wish it was 500k every time. Obviously that's probably not going to happen, but at least when it comes to the big events, it does, and so I can be somewhat appreciative of that aspect. Also, I guess the real question here is, did you pull for Dorothy, or were you going for this banner just for the Grey Altar? Because I see a lot of people apparently going for Grey Altar over wanting to actually get Dorothy. So, I mean, I don't know, I haven't checked out Dorothy's abilities, I don't exactly know what she does, but it is kind of sad to see that she's being neglected like this, especially after being teased for so long that we're getting her. But it feels like a lot of people are going for the either Melenar, or however you say it, or they're actually just saving up for the Texas Altar, which I am myself, so I do not blame you one bit if that's what you're going for. And also, I hope that it's not too boring seeing some of the early levels. I like to add as much gameplay and stuff as I possibly can to this, while not making it be too long of a video. I know there's a lot of things that I could have cut out of this one that I didn't, but I did cut out probably about an hour and a half of actual content, so This is cut down quite a bit before then. But with the way these were set up and how the mechanic works about activating these robot suits, you have to kind of make sure that you take everything out before it gets to the opportunity to awaken those, because those are the big annoying mechanics of this one, where you let them get charged up and they just absolutely decimate. So you have to be really careful, and I tried to take it upon myself to do it on the first try on all of these, to make sure that I could actually get it done without opening any of these suits, though I did fail a few of the times of stopping them. But I will say the one thing I didn't fail at was actually doing it on the first try. I was very excited to see that I got all the way to 7 without losing one. But as I've said before, I didn't do the boss stage, so we're going to have to go back and do that at some point, probably in an individual video to show how I did it. But as you can see, I'm looking at the maps beforehand, just giving a brief glimpse of what I actually need to do. So the one thing I noticed about this stage is that they're all going to be walking down that path from the top red gate. So I thought, what better way of stopping that than having Mudrock just bully everything that walks out of that door. So that's exactly what I did. Mudrock solos that lane pretty easily. Now I have thorns placed in the front here to do a lot of damage to anything that comes through. I considered putting Swire right there. I don't know why I ended up putting her in front. Maybe I drop a tank there after. I forget exactly how I did this, but either way, I put Jay guarding that top lane facing down so that anything that walks that way is going to get taken out by him. He's also another one that I'm excited to get close to E2. He just needs a lot of the same supplies that it took to take Tequila to E2. So now I'm going to have to farm like 14 more of those specific pieces. Probably going to take a while because that is a lot of sanity since they are not guaranteed, and I also can't build them. So if I can get to those specific pieces in the actual shop and the certificate part of it, then I will, but I am lacking a little bit in the certificate department currently, so it's going to take me a little bit to get to that. But moving on, we are on to the actual stage where Dorothy comes out. Now, I wasn't sure exactly how I wanted to handle this one at first. I figured with the way it was set up, it might be hard to stop any of the robots from actually waking up. But I threw in a little bit of a weird combo, I will say for sure. My placement is a bit strange, but it worked. It worked fantastically. And, you know, I have to say that I got pretty lucky, I guess, in that sense. I figured Thorns being there, he could build up his special pretty easy when he has a guaranteed hit on something, so that I could just get him hitting the robot there, and anything that walks out of that door is going to take a lot of damage. Now the problem is, Dorothy came out of that door, so now I'm thinking, okay, do I finish off Dorothy or do I let her pass? Because I read at the first of it that if she passes, she does not cost any of your life points, so you can let her live. Now I considered it because I'm thinking, you know, you made me wait this long for the event, Dorothy. Am I really just gonna let you off that easy? And I decided, yeah, I might as well, because it's not your fault. I don't blame you. But I am a little upset that you took your sweet time getting here. That being said, I'm not actually pulling for Dorothy, so it doesn't necessarily matter if she tries to come home or not. She is not allowed at home. But we end up pulling everything out and just letting her walk through. So yes, her life is spared. I had to rough her up a bit. She is very low health. But that's the price you pay when you tease us like that. DV6. Now this one was scary, seeing the position of the red gate, because I saw there was a non-deployable tile right in front of it. So I'm thinking, you know what I gotta do now? I gotta use that to get the LMD and go and finish getting Tequila up. So as you can see, I needed 4 grindstones. So I went and finished that off real quick after looking in here, because I was hoping, I was praying that there'd be some in the event shop. Unfortunately there wasn't, but I'm still perfectly fine with how the event shop is set up in this one, and I also pull the guaranteed unit from this Askin, or Askin? I don't really know how to say it. I did not look it up beforehand, so bear with me on that one. But she seems pretty cool. She is a chain caster, and I don't actually have my very own chain caster, so I might end up taking her up at some point. I am perfectly fine with working up a charity unit, as Tequila is also one that I worked up just in this vid. So very happy to see that he is finally E2. I now have a boss killer. Now I'm going to have to be a little smart with how I end up placing him so that he doesn't go down while he's not attacking, but the actual damage he does is more than worth, and even though I spent a ton of LMD on him, it's good to see that he's finally a meaningful part of my squad. So I did try to take him up as much as I could without using too much of the LMD, and I noticed that as you're getting to level 50, it really isn't that costly to take them to level 50, so I decided, 10 at a time, and then I get him here, 100 something K, really not too bad in the grand scheme of things, because he needs as much damage as he possibly can to really fill that role. Now I went to try to upgrade his mastery while doing this. Unfortunately, did not have the pieces that I needed, but in time I will get to that position. It's just one book and then two of the other things. I can't exactly remember what they're called, but really easy to get for me. I think I can also build them in the workshop, so it is pretty easy for both cases. So I will probably have that done, at least the first mastery, by the next video, and especially if it is the case of the actual guide that I'm going to try to do for the boss stage. He's going to be necessary to do as much damage as he possibly can. Now I did try out the ability at skill level 1 before doing the full charge that gives him the full magnitude of his damage, and it wasn't fantastic, so I decided to wait on this one. As you can see, it went from 44 to 510 on these things. These things are heavy defense units, so 510 is actually some pretty good damage, especially coming from a welfare unit. So juicy to see, but as you can see, I end up throwing a couple casters down to deal with the rest of them, just in case for some reason I did get any of them activated or something slipped through. I wouldn't have to worry about that. But with the first one gone, I can actually just put Mud Rock there, nothing else is going to walk through. And of course, for that little bit of added security, I also have Tequila use his ability to take everything else out. So we also hit another level up. We went from 55 to 56, which is always good to see. We're inching that much closer to 60, and I figure by that time, because I'm going to have enough OP to buy it anyway, I'm going to go ahead and get the 60 pack, because it is really, really good for a lot of resources. It's going to give me a lot of options, and of course the Arundum is going to translate completely, so it's not a waste in any regard. And now I also want to make sure that I save for some of the skins, because of course I love skins, and I want to try to get as many as I can. Unfortunately, no Swire Summer skin. I'm still upset about that, but we will make do with what we have. I can't be too choosy when it comes to that. Now this one, I was a bit scared at the red gate in the middle between the two blue gates, because I knew I didn't have a lot of options of stopping things, especially when it came to the fact that there was only one slot for ground units to try to take out anything that goes past this bot. But it also seems that the big boys charge them fully on the first thing, so I thought I might lose here. I might actually not do this one on the first try, and it was sad to think about because I was doing so well before then. But luckily, they don't do near as much damage as I thought they would. So with both of them being up, Tequila does actually go down pretty quickly, but the fact that I don't have Bagpipe using her ability at the moment, she doesn't gain that extra block, which means that one does go by. So now Bagpipe can secure the kill on this one, and then the four powerhouses I have down there are going to have to try to deal with the other ones. Now, I was hoping Click would be out of range at that point to not get shot by the rocket one, but I was wrong on that. Luckily though, with the healing I had here, Myrtle was actually able to tank this one by herself and keep him there long enough so I could secure the kill. Myrtle Gaming is real, ladies and gentlemen. Here is proof. I figured I'd show you a test of what Tequila is able to do at the level that I currently have him on this, so I ran a practice mode. This is the only one that I actually tried a practice run on, just to see what I'm capable of doing damage-wise to the boss, and I have to say that this boss is fairly tanky, even with Tequila doing all that damage. It just wasn't quite enough to take him out pretty early, so we're going to activate the ability, and show you it's doing 479 damage per hit, which you can see its health going down fairly rapidly. The problem is it's not fast enough. I need a little more sustain, I need a little more damage, because once he teleports a couple times, he teleports out of range of Tequila. So at that point, I'm going to have to figure out some way of doing enough damage there. Now, I could potentially throw in another damage dealer like Cutter, for instance, to try to deal with a little bit of extra damage, but I'm not sure what I want to do yet. We'll figure that as time goes on. But I will show you a little bit of what I've been working on. So obviously, getting Tequila up, I almost have the module on Swire. Amaya is almost E2, Jay is going to go E2 as soon as I can on that as well, but as you can see, he needs 14 of the grindstones, which is going to take a lot of time, a lot of sanity anyway, at least, because they are rare drops from the floors that they actually drop from. So it's going to take me a bit of time to get to that point, but the rock farming is also going to take a lot of time, so E2 Amaya will come probably in the next video, but we'll see what happens. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.